Okay, so today's video is more of an introduction into Bitcoin. I'm just going to go through some key pieces of information and different websites and things you may need, especially if you're beginning to Bitcoin, or perhaps just a refresher if you're more experienced in the space. So to start, Bitcoin is a digital currency. It was created in January 2009. It was, well, the person who supposedly made Bitcoin is anonymous, but they go by the name Satoshi Nakamoto, but of course it could also be a group of people, we don't know that. The main thing is that Bitcoin is operated by a decentralized authority, so again, it's not like our private central banks or government issued currencies. Bitcoins are not physical, they're digital, and so their balances are kept on these public ledgers, which are very transparent, everyone has access to them. And one of the key things with Bitcoin as opposed to other cryptocurrencies is that it has the largest market cap, and so it's the most well-known one that most people know about. Bitcoin is created, distributed, traded, and stored with the use of a decentralized ledger system known as a blockchain. And so this technology known as the blockchain is relatively new, and this is why, again, Bitcoin's kind of existence is very recent, and a lot of people still know very little about this, again the point of this video. And so the history of Bitcoin as a store of value has been quite bad so far, in the sense that it's been very volatile. But then when any say for example tech companies starting, when they first started, the prices of course were extremely volatile, so this is to be expected with a new type of commodity. So the more specific detail of what Bitcoin is Bitcoin is a collection of computers or nodes that all run Bitcoin's core code and store its blockchain. So what is a blockchain? A blockchain is like a collection of blocks, and each of these blocks is a collection of transactions. So we have this, say, a couple of blocks in a line. Each block has a collection of specific transactions, and there's also computers running this blockchain that also have the same list of blocks and transactions. And these can transparently be seen, these new blocks, as they're being filled with these new Bitcoin transactions. And so one of the key things with Bitcoin is because everything's so transparent, and it's basically like built by mathematical code, and so no one can really cheat the system. And so one of the things I wanted to potentially show you was this website. It's called blockchain.com, and if you look here, it shows you some key things. So if you look here, there's the actual transactions, how when they were mined in minutes, who the miner was, and the size of that transaction. So again, everything's recorded, everything's very transparent, and this is what makes it very unique compared to most other asset classes or stores of value currently in existence. So again, here's a variety of things you can look at. Okay, so back to the main page. So your balances of your Bitcoin, they can either be kept using public or private keys. So as I said, there's the transparent balance that you may have available, say on an exchange, for example, Coinbase, which is one of the most popular cryptocurrency exchanges. And so you have your balance there, but to actually access your balance, you need to have keys. So say if your Bitcoin is stored on Coinbase, then you have a public key which allows you to access it, which is through Coinbase. But for example, Coinbase could potentially be hacked. So private keys mean that you potentially hold the keys to access your balance. So unless somebody is able to somehow get those private keys off of you, they won't be able to access your balance. And so more specifically, what these keys are these keys are basically long strings of numbers and letters that are linked together through a mathematical encryption algorithm that was used to create them. So you can think of these private keys pretty much like, say, an ATM pin, and these are very important keys. You should not be showing them to anyone unless you want them to be able to access your money, which I don't think you do. And so whenever someone asks you for these private keys, it will only ever be to authorize your Bitcoin transmissions. It will not be for any other purpose. So Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer technology. It can help facilitate instant payments. So one similarity between Bitcoin and gold is there are miners, and you might be wondering, how can there be miners for something that isn't even physical, right? Well, these miners have mining rigs, so very advanced pieces of software, and these can process the transactions on the blockchains. And the motivation behind this is, of course, rewards. So again, it says here the rewards can include transaction fees paid in Bitcoin, and so these provide incentives for the miners to actually mine blocks containing Bitcoin. And so these miners are actually what form the decentralized authority that enforce the credibility of the Bitcoin network. So Bitcoin is released at a fixed but periodically declining rate. The total supply is 21 million. And again, there's another really useful website over here. And it shows very clearly how many Bitcoin are left to be mined, the total amount of Bitcoin in existence, the percentage of Bitcoins that have currently been issued, and the new Bitcoins that are being mined per day. So let me just scroll down 2 seconds. So the maximum amount of Bitcoin, as we said, is 21 million. One thing that's quite interesting about Bitcoin is that Bitcoins can be lost, and by lost I mean people can lose their keys, which is again why your private keys are so important. Like it's like having the keys to a car, for example. So if you lose those keys, you can't really get into the car, and unlike a car, I guess you can't even break into this car called Bitcoin. So again, your keys are extremely important. So it's estimated that 3 to 4 million Bitcoins were lost forever. But obviously what this means is potentially there's fewer Bitcoin, which again introduces further the idea of scarcity, which is one of the key attractions behind Bitcoin. So I'm just going to scroll down here. And so again, back to the idea of having your keys. This was one of the largest Bitcoin hacks that ever happened, where 850,000 Bitcoins were stolen on this Mt. Gox hack. So again, even if you're keeping an exchange like Coinbase, you may think it's safe, and of course a lot of people new to the space do think it's safe, but it's better to be safe than sorry, and these hacks do happen, and so you must be prepared for them, especially if you want to be in this space for the long run. Okay, back to the main website. 1 Bitcoin is divisible into 8 decimal places, and these small units are referred to as Satoshi. And of course, perhaps as the Bitcoin price gets more expensive, and already for most people it is relatively expensive per Bitcoin. I think today it's around $8,800. So again, the reason why these divisible units known as Satoshi exists is perhaps in the future, if the price were much higher, it's easier to say buy Satoshis rather than say buy Bitcoins, as not many people would be able to afford to buy multiple Bitcoins at the same time. And so again, in my opinion, Bitcoin's usage is more effective as a store of value, but again, a lot of people see it as a very strong means of payment. And if you look at online businesses, as well as them accepting things like PayPal and credit cards, a lot of them actually accept Bitcoins as a payment option as well. So it's very possible that Bitcoin can be in the future used as a common method of payment. Okay, and one of the last things I wanted to show you is there's something called a Ledger Nano S, and this is the kind of private keys I was referring to before. And if you look here, about £55, but there are better one. There's a better one available as well called a Ledger Nano X. But let me just go through this one because this is more accessible for perhaps beginners to the space. And so what it is with a Ledger Nano S, you own the private key. Like I said, you don't need to own the balance. You need to own the key to access that balance, because obviously if someone has that key, like say the key to the house, you can't get in your house, but they can, right? So you want to have your key and you want to make sure no one else has that key. So your keys will remain protected in a certified secure chip. There's a software that this company Ledger has called Ledger Live. And so this allows you to be able to store your Bitcoin on this USB-like device called the Ledger Nano S, and you can access your balance and see your coin balances from your smartphone or your computer. And in terms of the capacity, Ledger Nano S can only install between 3 to 6 applications. It obviously supports the main cryptocurrencies, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Bitcoin Cash, EOS, and Stellar. Let me see if I can find the other one. So here's Ledger Nano S. Again, Ledger Nano X can store up to 100 apps. Obviously, that's much, much more than the 3 to 6 applications that the Ledger Nano S currently has. And one of the key things that make this quite attractive as well is, again, the Bluetooth connection. So you can access your balance from anywhere, you can keep your private keys safe, and you can pretty much use it on the go. The screen is bigger, etc. So in my opinion, if you can afford this one would obviously be a good thing for protection. But I think one thing they also have is a backup pack where you get an X and an S Ledger, and this basically means that if your X were to get damaged, you could still back up your cryptocurrencies on your S through your backup code, I think it's called. So that's all for this video, and that was a summary of the kind of main basics behind Bitcoin. And so one of a good website which I'm using is Investopedia, and there's many more where you can perhaps look into more about what Bitcoin is and get more information on it. And the whole point of this video is so that in my future videos, when I go over things like stock to flow charts, etc., you all have at least basic knowledge of what Bitcoin is. And if you have any more specific areas you want me to go over, just write them in the comments. But for now, thanks for watching, and until next time.